Hello again. Welcome back to our JavaScript for Beginners series. In this episode, we will look into the deeper structure of what are the Chrome developer tools can be used for. So we have already seen console, and then we have been working with console for some time now. And then I will explain to you what are each of these tabs, elements, console, sources, network, performance summary, each of these mean. So Cron developer tools are a powerful set of tools that can help you debug your code, profile your website's performance, and much more. So like one of the first thing you will notice is the elements tab. So inside the elements tab for now, I'm like getting the Google web page itself, and then I'm like, going to the inspect mode, and then I will see, okay, elements, right? So how you can do that is like go to inspect mode, and then you have the elements tab selected. So inside the elements tab, you have this particular key mouse pointer over here. If you select that, and then if you hover over to the web page itself, you can see this being highlighted. So this image is actually referenced over here in the HTML page. So you can see all the details about it, right? And then if you want to, let's say you have to change the color for like to see how it actually works before you make some modification to the code, you can do it over here. If you want to change the background to a green color, then you can do it over here itself. And then if you want to add a like solid border color, what you can do is like you go over here and then you do a color, right? So if you go to orange color, and then you're going to say I want 3 pixel in width. So you can see a orange color is over there. So in this way, you can check how it actually looks in the browser, and then only you can make the change in your code. So this can be used for like the elements tab can be used for all these elements that are associated with your web page. And then if you want to see how exactly this particular web page will look in your mobile screens, then you can use this particular method called toggle device toolbar. What it does is it will give you some of the predefined mobiles resolutions. So if you're going to access it from Pixel 5, then you can see how the Pixel 5 screen looks. And if you want to access it from iPhone SE, how it will look in iPhone SE, and so on and so forth, right? So you can use it and then check that how responsive is your website is. And then if you want to get out of it, then click on it again, and then that's it. Now, as you can see, we have already used the console, and then this here, you can see all the informations about your coding journey so far, and then this will give you the errors, warnings, info, and then like what are the messages you have set so far. This can be all viewed over here. So this is how you can access the console menu. And then inside the source menu, whenever a web page is loaded, it will actually load the website's images, HTML, scripts, CSS files, everything. So all those can be viewed over here. So this particular file is a JS file, and then that is the index page of this file, and then this is where all of this starts, right? So this particular web page is actually showing the Google's whole search thing, everything, right? So this is actually starts from here. And then if you want to see the image is also being loaded over here, you can see that particular image is loaded here. And then the search image, like they're using something called CSS slice, I think it was a name, I think. So they're using CSS sprites, sorry, not slides. It's CSS sprites being used to cut this particular search and then show it over here, and so on and so forth. So you can see what are the APIs being called from here itself, and then like you can go through it and understand what are the scripts being loaded and what are the CSS being loaded and what are the images being loaded into the web page when you actually open the web page. And then there is another one called debugger tool, which we'll use later on in the advanced JavaScript sessions. So debugger, what it is like it will actually help you to stop the execution of that particular web page script in between a certain function, and then you can go one by one function call. See, step over next function call, or you want to go to the next function call directly into the itself, and then you can pause and then play and then see where exactly what are the values of each of those functions and what are the values of that variable, and then how the value is being modified, and everything can be viewed over this sources tab, debugger tab. All right. And then in the network tab, if you go to the network tab, you can see, and then if in the network tab, if you want to see the whole beginning of the web page load, you have to refresh. So I just press refresh, and then you can see it goes to the google.com and then it returns a document. And then directly, if you go to the preview, it's returning the Google HTML page, right? And then the image is actually loaded later on. And if you go to the timing section, you can see this is what we call a timing waterfall method. And inside if you want to know more about the waterfall method, you can actually see all of these details over here. So in a nutshell, what it does is, if you go over here and then hover over it, you see that before the URL actually went through it, it was queued for 1.55 milliseconds, which is a very short amount of time. And then before the connection started, did it stall? Like, did it take some time to actually spool up and then go into the server? So it took around 0.87 milliseconds, and then the request to being sent, it only took 0.32 milliseconds. And then the server actually responded after 2 to 3.67 milliseconds. And then the browser downloaded that particular response using this much of time. So in total, this page to be loaded, it took around 4 to 6 milliseconds. So each of these assets, or like each of these images or scripts, it has a certain timestamp associated with it. So you can see how long which API is taking, and then what are the APIs that are taking too long, and then what are the APIs taking like too long to download itself, and what is the size of each of those API returning. So most of them are like, only this one is 44.2 KB, and everything else is like bytes, and except for this one. So all these details can be accessed from this particular network tab. And then the status means 200 means like it's actually successful. It returned a successful message saying that, okay, your server has responded with a successful message. And then you can see 404, 500, and then there are so many other HTTP response status that you can actually access it. If you Google to HTTP response codes, you can see all these values over there. So again, MDN, Mozilla, you will actually give all the things, right? Informational response, successful response, redirection, client error, server error, all these things. Okay, and the next one is performance. Okay, and before we go into that, we can also see there are options called disable cache. So if you are working on a cached mechanism, cached web page, and you are using heavily the caching mechanism in your web page, then if you want to see the data changes immediately, then you should enable this particular button, particular option, so that your data won't be cached all the time. And also, this is the old request that has been made until the page loaded. If you want to only see the fetch or XHR request, then you can enable this. If you want to see only the scripts that are being loaded, you can enable this. You can filter it, basically. That's it. Images, media, font, doc, those sort of things, right? And the next one is performance tab. So what performance tab does is, like, once you are refreshing the page, you just press start recording, and then it will give you like how long did it take to actually load the page, and then like what is the performance score of this particular page itself. And memory is the snapshot, like what are the total amount of memory that has been taken by this particular web page to load into the JavaScript VM instance, right? So it can be seen over here. So this performance and memory, we won't be using it that much until you are an advanced like JavaScript performance engineer. So most of the time in in our code editing sections, I don't think we will hit the performance limits of JavaScript until you mess up really badly, like you do an infinite loop and everything in the code itself, right? And the next one is application. You have seen the application tab like a little bit in when we were studying about the browser storage and everything. So you can see cookies, you can access all the cookies. Like, as you can see, there are so many cookie has been set into browser by Google, because like there are so many things they need to track of, right? And then in session storage also, you have this particular value like logged into it. And then in local storage also, there are so many things, right? So these can be accessed in the application tab of storage. And then there are manifest, storage worker, service workers, and storage. And then the caching mechanisms, payment handler, if your website is handling payments, and then like those kinds of things can be seen over here. And then you have Lighthouse. So Lighthouse is basically a tool by Google itself, which will actually give you what's your page load, and then like how long does it take to um, load into the view of that particular user. And then it will give you a score report based on that report. So that score can be used to see like if your website is performing really well, or is it like following the best practices, is it actually following the SEO practices and everything. So when you do that, if anything is above like 70 percentage, that's actually a good score. And then accessibility, if your website is mostly for the, if you want to make it accessible for the differently able guys, or like visually challenged people, then you have to include all these accessibility features in the website as well. And then you should definitely follow all the best practices. These best practices vary from JavaScript, CSS, and then the image being loaded, the format of image being loaded, all those things. So these needs to be followed if you want to get the full score. And then the SEO practices. So this is the one of the most important thing if you want to have a better score in your application while being deployed into the world, right? So these options and then like all these metrics, we can find it from here. And then like how long did it actually take to load. In the first beginning itself, you see a white screen, and then like on the third frame itself, you can see Google has been fully emulated. And then it will give you the suggestions for it, like what can you do to improve this and everything. So reduce on is JavaScript, and then if you want to follow through it, this will actually increase your score. And then minimize main thread work, and this will actually reduce 3.1 seconds and all these things. So there are certain things which you can't avoid for the usage of your website structure, like your website architecture is different, and then you can't do much about it. So those scenarios we can actually skip this, and then we will be happy with this particular score. So this score can be used to actually identify if you are doing everything correctly for the outside world of user, right? So these are like the most used. This is how you can access all these Chrome developer tools, and then you have a better understanding of how the each of these tabs work. And that's about it. In the next episode, like we will dive into the advanced JavaScript versions. Until then, see you again in the next episode. Thank you.